Hello? Okay. Taking things seriously is so hard for me sometimes. Okay. So, not the kind of entry that I'd usually make, just that little context. But I came up with some ideas for entries that I wanted to make, and some of them were just talking about things, and one person told me that I should do ASMR of some sort, which I don't really think I'm that good at, but this is like as close as I'll get. So anyway, to get to the point, this will just kind of be a soft-spoken little thing for, I mostly make these for myself, but, in the event that this appeals to anyone, this is just a little soft-spoken video where I'm reading my old notes, so some of them, well, one of them will be stupid, and a few other ones, or maybe a couple other ones, are kind of more on the poetic side, or they're just little creative writings I did. And then I have 2 dreams. So I'll be reading the whole thing for each one. I'll give a little context for each, and stating the date that I wrote them. And that's about it. So, yeah. So the first one that I have, the stupid one, is called Molly, and it was made on March 28th, 2024. I made this in my neuroscience class with my friend for a little project that we were working on. I don't really know how this was productive to it had something to do with whatever we were doing, but I digress. Molly was a stupid little girl. She was clumsy and had no sense of direction. Unsurprisingly, she had a lot of falls, and unsurprisingly again, one day she got a concussion. She had been bouncing on her trampoline when at one point she decided to bounce so hard that she went high up into the air and right over the fence into her neighbor's yard. She landed hard on the ground and immediately started feeling restless, confused, or aggravated. When her mother rushed over, Molly could not recognize who she was. In fact, she no longer knew what year it was. She felt weak, sluggish, and began vomiting all over her mother except for literally anywhere else. She claimed to just not feel right, or to feel down, both in quotations, and began howling like a wolf due to personality changes. She never recovered. Alright, that was entry 1. And now we move on to an entry made on November 28th of 2022. This one is a little bit more on the wow, a little bit more on the poetic side. She was as elegant as the moon, though she did not quite shine like it. Her beauty was masked by an aura as dull as a cloudy evening sky. Her hair was black like coal, her skin as gray as dust. Her eyes were deep oceans with no life in them, vast yet empty. She was a shell washed ashore, a body with no soul inside. I don't have a lot of context for that one. That was just, I remember writing it. I think I was trying to give a description for a character I was making, but I don't remember the character, and that's all that I have for that one. So the next one was something that I made on May 2nd, 2022. The context for this one is that it was based off of a dream that I had. So it was more like kind of poetic, but the dream really kind of stuck with me, so I wrote this. Awoken to the feeling of wind in her face, she was born with the string that lets her fly. As she soars through the sky, higher than the clouds, she grows up beautiful and graceful as a bird. Eventually she finds love, and a prince who soars amongst her, I guess. Time goes as fast as flight, and eventually she's carrying a child. too heavy to soar with a heart heavier than stone. As the prince who once loved her evaporates like a dream, her string snaps and she falls to the ground and dies. I feel like there's going to be a theme with quite a few of the entries that I've picked out. They're I don't mean for them to all be so depressing. It's just kind of, I feel like this is just kind of my writing style, or like the things that interest me. Dreams that stick out to me are like this. So in my dream, I remember this was 3 years ago, so a little over 3 years ago, but I do remember this dream. I remember a woman connected to a very tall pole by a string that she kind of swung in a circular motion around, and there were other people. This was a very, very tall pole. And she found love, and I believe that her husband, I described it as evaporates like a dream, but I remember that he left her for some reason or another. I think he found love somewhere else. But he did so when she was with child. So I think she becomes heartbroken and dies of heartbreak. That was kind of the impression that I got from that dream. Kind of like a third person perspective. Some of my dreams are like that. Anyway, let me see. Okay, so next entry I made on May 3rd of 2021. Context for this is I was in Boston and I was on the train I was actually on the train to Boston. But I like this one because I did enjoy that trip. It was not a very good time for me, but it was one of those things that it was just a nice time during a dark time, if that makes any sense. So this trip I very much associate with rainy weather because it was raining the whole time, which usually kind of drains my energy, but I felt very nice on this trip, kind of. It felt like I was getting away from things. I did not have very good friends. I was inside all the time. This was during quarantine, 2021, so not the best time. I also associate this, with caramel candy, because my grandma always had some on her, so she always had caramel candy on her, and I was eating it the whole time. Anyway, it doesn't really have much to do with my writing, not that specifically, but let me just get into it. So, the train ride was dull, but the music I listened to made it brighter. I slept for a bit, but kept waking up. The chair didn't recline as far back as I had hoped. I still had to sit up straight if I wanted to be comfortable, but it didn't allow me to rest my head. So when I fell asleep, my head would drop, and it would startle me awake again. It sucked, but at least I dozed here and there. When I woke, it was raining. I stayed up for a while and stared out the window. The clouds looked like gray bags of water as they sagged in the sky. As if a tiny pin were to poke through it, would cause it to burst water onto the buildings of the city. I had to repeat that last one a few times because, I don't know, that one was rough. I had to re-record that. Anyway, so I do remember the clouds just, like I said, like they were sagging in the sky. They were like giant balloons, like water balloons, and it looked like if you just took a small needle and poked a hole through it, it would just make all the water crash down into the city below it. So I just kind of, the rest of that was just kind of a regular entry, but I did enjoy the last part of writing that the most. So anyway, now we get into the dreams. So my first dream I recorded on May 21st, 2021. So here it is. In my dream, I think I was in love with this girl. We both had powers. We were that whole opposites attract kind of thing. She was ice and I was fire. Both of our fathers tried to keep us apart. I don't think they liked the fact that we were together. Maybe because we were of the same sex or of opposite elements. Or both. And they tried to hypnotize us a lot. They'd put designs on the walls of our castle that would move, or they'd put things in front of us that we had to look away from. Sometimes I could see through her eyes and see her father was doing the same thing. This went on for a while and eventually they just let us go. But I guess it came at a price. We would only get to be together if we could cross this teeth-shaped gate thing. It had sharp edges that would open and close, and you had to make it across at the right time. If we made it to the other side, we could be together, but I don't think we could ever return home. I don't know where my father was, but my mother was there when I was leaving. I don't know why I remembered my language in the dream, but I said Parashav after I hugged her. It translates to let's go, if you forgot. I was talking to myself. I think in whatever world I was in, we had powers, but we had to let go of certain abilities in order to obtain others. For instance, we had fire and ice powers, but lost the ability to physically feel and taste. I jumped through the gate while calling to her on the other side, but I jumped a little too late through the opening, and the teeth closed on me. I felt nothing. And that might seem normal, because I feel like for most people they can't feel things in dreams, but I don't know if it's weird because I usually can. Anyway, after they closed on me, she helped me down and walked to sorry for the notification. Let me just turn that off. Okay, back to the dream. Anyway, after they closed on me, she helped me down and we walked to a white train together. I told her I saw taste, because I don't think I had the same knowledge I would have if I was in real life. Taste wasn't a thing, but it was the same as having a vision if we're talking realistically. And she was surprised when I said this. My theory is that I tasted my own blood. It's strange that I remember this much detail, but when the teeth closed in on me, I remember biting down on my tongue. There was no feeling, but I tasted something. And it tasted kind of good, not gonna lie. What the fuck? Moving on, I don't think either of us actually made it. I think by the end of the dream we both passed away. I don't know how I saw her on the other side if she had died, though. Maybe that was just me seeing her and waiting to join her. But I'm pretty gosh darn sure I didn't make it, cause, yeah, I think the train was meant to resemble us moving on. And that's when the dream really ended. So, a lot to unpack with that dream. I'm only gonna say this here. I've had so many lesbian dreams. I have had more lesbian dreams than I've had straight ones, and that's really saying something, because I think I'm straight, but I don't, well, it will always remain a mystery, I think. Anyway, that's irrelevant. I did find this dream very interesting, to be honest. Just how the power thing worked, how I was being hypnotized by my dad, how she was being hypnotized by her dad, how we apparently both died, how, especially how in order to have certain powers we had to lose other abilities, other regular human abilities. I thought that was the most interesting, probably. Anyway, I did always remember this dream. This was a very impactful dream. Moving on. This is the last story that I'll be telling. The last one is another dream. I recorded this on March 26, 2023, and I actually gave this one a title. It's called Die. Very fitting. Alright. My dad and I were in this camp, but something had gone wrong. I remember sitting on the ground when these sirens started going off. To give you a visual, the walls were this grayish metal. There were few dim lights, and dull carpeting on the floor. Red sirens started blaring on the walls, and we were with a group that consisted of staff, kids, and parents that sort of huddled in a corner. There was a voice in the sirens telling us to use the left door in the room we were in to evacuate. There were 3 doors. There was a door on the far right, a middle door, and a door on the far left telling people to not enter. There was a lot of broken wood over it, like someone had attempted to exit it before, but you could still enter if you tried. Me and the others were trying to figure out if we should go in the do not enter room or the middle room when one of the kids ran into the do not enter room, probably out of panic. I chased after him, but as soon as he entered the room, the siren started blaring louder, which obviously wasn't good. There was a window in the door, and I tried to wave him out, but it wouldn't move. He just stood there, his back to me, like he was shut off. I then opened the door myself to try and get his attention, but it only got worse, so we all ran into the middle room. Everyone walked ahead of me as we Everyone walked ahead of me as we walked through the hallway. I stayed in the back. I think I was still thinking about that kid. The siren stopped. At the end of the hallway, you would turn a corner that led into a room with a lot of color. It was a small playground-like room, but instead of slides, there was a bunch of inflatables that you could jump on. Everything was rainbow-colored. The kids immediately started playing, which was strange. I just stood there. The parents walked to the sides to watch. I went on one of the inflatables, but I was not having fun. I was almost waiting for something, but at the time I didn't know what. Then I got off, and I realized what it was. When I walked away, I left a part of me behind in that room. I walked over to my dad. I saw one of the inflatables in the back start to rise, and I knew it was happening. I told him, "I'm about to die in 3 seconds." The inflatable continued to rise as I counted down. 3, 2, 1, and the room exploded. I don't know where everyone went. I was teleported behind this sort of glass. My dad was no longer there, neither were the parents. The kids were no longer there. I was just behind this glass, looking at the scene that cut sharp after the explosion. Everything had paused or ended. I was looking at flying gray dust, but I saw nothing else. At the bottom of the glass, I could scroll through the scene like a video. I replayed it several times. It didn't make me sad or angry. I didn't feel anything looking at it, but I rewatched it over and over again until my dream ended. So that was the last entry that I had for this little entry on its own. It's just kind of a collection of entries that I've made. And that dream is probably one of the most interesting that I've had. So, I know that a lot of the things that I talked about, a lot of my past entries were kind of on the darker side. And that isn't necessarily intentional. It's just kind of where my interests lie, and I feel like, yeah, I mean, pretty much. So, yeah, I don't really have, I think that dream kind of lays everything out, except for the end, which was something different, definitely. I have quite a few dreams about me dying, and that's not something that I find concerning at all. And when I have these dreams, I'm almost never afraid or sad or angry or anything. It doesn't make me feel anything. And that it just doesn't faze me. It's not because I'm depressed, it's just kind of something that happens, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I lucid dream a lot, and I kind of know already what's going to happen in my dreams. So that's a whole other entry that I want to make on its own, talking about lucid dreaming and my dream places and things like that. But that was it for what I had, and if you made it through all 20 minutes of this, then I just hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you have a good night. Thank you for listening, or day, I don't know. I'm recording this at night. And I'll see you around. Bye-bye.